Raptillian. Tom Thompson.
Ahoy there, mateys. It's time to set sail on another episode of Unconstitutional Awakening, the podcast. I'm your captain, Jimbob Olshorts, and tonight we've got a super awesome guest for you guys, man. He's a rapper, he's a podcaster, he's just a guy trying to do some good stuff out there for everyone, spreading a good message, man. His name is Tom Thompson. You may know him as the Raptillian. He's got a couple other aliases going on out there, man. But this was a really good episode and a really fun time with Neptune and I hosting Tom for this episode. Of course, as you guys know, we had that hiatus and computer was down and all that good nonsense. So this episode was actually recorded on April 12th of 2023. But you guys are just getting it today, so I do apologize if anything seems a little dated. We'll be caught up here soon with episodes and such, and that won't be that big of an issue anymore. But this was still a great episode, and we still had a really, really great time, man. Like, full of laughs and just cutting up and things like that. So I really think you guys are going to like this one. And like Tom himself, man, he's a pretty cool guy. In fact, that song you heard just a moment ago for the little entrance there, that's totally some of his work, man. He's been out there working hard, doing his thing. So I just figured, as usual, this would be another one of these amazing folks that I can bring to y'all's attention, and y'all can go on over there and give him some love. You guys know I'll have all his links in this episode, and maybe some other stuff that I can come up with to go with it. And you guys make sure you go show him some love, man. And I appreciate all the love you guys have been showing me while we've been on hiatus. It's definitely meant a lot. I've seen all the messages and all that good stuff, so I appreciate you guys holding tight while we worked out our technical difficulties. So it truly means a lot, and I can't thank you guys enough, man. Of course, if you need anything or want to catch up on anything good, you guys are always welcome to go over to everyone's favorite website online, unconstitutionalawakening.com, your home for everything us. We've got all kinds of good things going on over there, man. We've got a new fella named Jesse working with us. He's writing articles, as well as I've been writing some articles that you can find over there in the news section. Of course, you can keep up with all the podcasts that we've done in the past and the things I got going on the Red Pill Project and things that the rest of the crew's got going on and podcast and more. If you're tired of being censored over there on Facebook and everywhere else, you can come on over here and hop on the UA social, man. And you can even, check these host links here and find all your favorite hosts on all your favorite social medias. However you want to roll it, man. We got the links to all of it there. Of course, as well, while you're there, you can find links to watch the show if all you do is listen, and listen if all you do is watch, as well as listen right there on the website. You guys know I try to keep that thing hooked up properly just so that everybody can get a good taste of it, man. And, make sure you get on over there and check out the merch store. We've dropped some new merch, and I'm pretty sure all of y'all are going to be excited about it because we side with the orcas, man, and you're going to have to go check out that merch to see what I'm talking about. As well as checking out our friends in Liberty, Kirk Elliott, PhD, Peachy Key Creations, Ammo Can Survival, Brett Pike with Classical Learners and Homeschools Connected, and Pure Pet Wellness. All of these folks doing great things to bring great change to the future world instead of dealing with the status quo that, frankly, has led us array. I mean, look at Clown World as it is now, all right? So you guys make sure you get on over there and check out all that good stuff. And I reckon I'm going to shut my trap so that you guys can get on into this episode. So let's set sail, fellas. Ahoy there, everybody. As I was saying, this is my new buddy that I found over here on Instagram, the host of Strange Brew Podcast. And man, how did you want to go by this evening, man? I didn't fail to ask you.
I go by a bunch of different aliases, which is quite funny because my co-host like to tease me about that. But I go by Tomcat, Tom Thompson, or the Raptillian is my hip-hop persona, so to speak. But I think in the hip-hop game and even just in the podcasting world, it's kind of good to have a couple aliases in your back pocket.
Why not? I mean, that's that. You can have a couple different names to throw out there to throw different albums out underneath or something. Like you could,
yeah. 100%.
Something to run with, man. Like so that is what took an interest to me, is I seen you had, a music thing. I have another friend that actually does kind of awake based rapping and stuff, and I call it awake because it's not woke. Like I think woke's a joke, but I think there's people that are awake to reality, and like Tess was just on here with us actually last night, and she doesn't, this kind of rap stuff too. But yours is, man, I don't know. I've been kind of jamming what you sent me and what I found after digging around for a little bit myself, and I was like, this is something I could rock with. So
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, and I even released a song recently where I said like this is kind of not about fame; it's just about putting my message out there. And I kind of started by I was younger and I was in a metal band, and then I started kind of writing rhymes while I was still in like a metal band, and it kind of just started. And I was very shitty at the beginning; I was horrible, and then like I kept kind of conditioning myself to freestyle and get better at that, just listen to a beat and carry off of it. And then I've always listened to music like punk music, hip hop, especially underground hip hop that was against like the government and what was going on in the world and against like anti-establishment kind of music. And then it kind of sparked the fire under my ass to really start utilizing music and putting it out there for whoever kind of wants to listen, right? So, and I try to, I guess you could say, wake people up through my music or call out certain things that are happening in the world. And so kind of, I've always been musically inclined, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So I heard you mention your co-host. I heard you mention him also before we started recording as well. Yeah. Like, I gotta ask, where is he this evening? He was more than welcome to come along.
I know. So Anton probably would have joined, but Billy, my main co-host, the guy I started the show with, and people that aren't aware, Strange Brew podcast started of us just sitting in a basement drinking, most times getting way too drunk and discussing like conspiracies and the paranormal and anything and everything strange. Billy is a weird duck, you could say. He only appears when we have to record certain episodes, and I've had other people ask like, where's he at kind of thing. Nate from Reality Stars was like, yeah, bring Billy on. And because of his conflicting schedule and all that shit, we try our best to get him in on stuff, but he's I'm like, you got to come this day, and he's like, that's for sure. I don't know about any other time. So he's Lord. I can get him when I can get him, and the fans and the people on Strange Podcast love him because he's like kind of he's a comedian in his own nice. In his own way.
Yeah. Oh well, we're sorry that we missed you, and we hope that maybe next time he'll decide to come over here and join in and such. Hopefully he'll take a listen to this.
Ask him to put on his pirate hat and we'll sail the seas together.
There we go, man. That's what I like. So, man, you mentioned Nate there, man. I love Nate. He's been kind of an awesome dude throughout some things, man. I've had him on for a few episodes, as well as I had him on for like a Christmas special that we did, which was kind of fun. And that was
that's fun.
And he's a really cool guy. He's actually doing some help in a project that I got working on.
Well, he had us film stuff for a paranormal documentary, and like he's like, I don't know what you want, if you want to kind of just like, use the Ouija board in the graveyard. And I was like, sure, let's do that. And I told him that he kind of lit the fire under my ass to like start maybe doing more stuff like that, because, we're a podcast where I do have one of my co-hosts, at least, and one of them is in Ireland and one of them is in Buffalo and I'm in Canada. So at least I have Billy where we are close enough where we can do stuff and film things. So I was like, oh, we're going to start doing this more often, going to maybe haunted locations and filming it and just seeing, because I've been fascinated. I have 3 Ouija boards over there. Like I've been using paranormal objects, you could say, paraphernalia for a long time.
I lived in Buffalo for quite some time. I used to do the back and forth thing over to the Canada. We've got another guy that hangs out on the show frequently. He's an unofficial co-host, Canadian John. He's from he does the news updates for real, man. He comes over here and hangs out with us, and he's a character, man. He's good for laughs, and he keeps telling everybody I was the only guy that took him serious and listened to him when he started making his conspiracy videos. And I was like, well, yeah, man. I was like, you are serious. I was like, I don't consider them conspiracies anymore when too many of them are right and too many of them aren't conspiracies. Like, it's
Canada kind of like, they paint Canadians as these like really nice apologetic people, but that's not always the case. Even we had Tommy Chong on the show, and he obviously grew up in Vancouver, and he kind of said something about like Canada's the only place where like people will punch you over a fucking pack of smokes and shit. And he's like, when I moved to California, it wasn't like that. And I was like, everyone thinks they were kind of like pussies and shit like that, but like some Canadians are like hardcore and don't really care. And you know, we had the Freedom Convoy, which was good for those people, kind of shit that you know, were able to push. Yeah, and then you have this shit too, right? We're like 100%. This is what we always get this joke. Billy always makes this joke where fucking he has his head yapping. It's like, yes, he was just saying on one of the episodes that there is Canadians that are talk like that. They're like, hey buddy boy, yeah, but and he said when he was out east, he literally like met like one dude. He went to get a pack of smokes, and this guy literally was the human version of like the South Park Canadian.
Oh my God. I even made an animation of Canadian John that has his head chopped like that and showed it to him. And he was like, can you send me a copy of that? And he made it his Instagram story for like a couple days straight because he was just like, this is the best. He's like, I didn't understand it when I first seen it. And then somebody was like, it's South Park, bro. I was like you got to get out more, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, you got to get out more. If you haven't seen South Park. That's wild.
So you know you're into the paranormal thing and stuff. Again, I heard you mention Nate's paranormal thing. I actually did some filming for him with that, and I even did a Bigfoot documentary with Nate. Like Nate's a really cool guy, man. Like I like what he's
super
got
chill,
going on
and
over
he's
there.
kind of able to put the bridge across for certain people.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. And like, yeah, the paranormal is fascinating to me. I've always been into this stuff since as far as I can remember. Like, and I always say before there was conspiracies or true crime or any of the other stuff we talk about, it was always the paranormal. Like my grandma gave me a Ouija board. Me and my friends started using it all the time. Like in like grade 7, we would be coming home at fucking lunch because I was so close to school. We'd be like using the Ouija board. I don't know why we were so obsessed with it. And then I have an aunt, she's Jamaican, and she said that she used to play the Ouija board in Jamaica, and she got obsessed with it. And she was like, don't ever play it by yourself. Don't ever use it. I always say play like it's a toy, but they sell it in Hasbro and shit, so it's like it's a toy. I mean, and then I was like, I come home and I was like drinking, using the Ouija board by myself, and I felt things. I've seen weird shit in my life. Yeah. And I've always will be, as I get older, somewhat of a skeptic and say, hey, it could be the subconscious kind of, you're tapping into something in the back of your mind. It's a possibility.
So we have a running theory around here that like I'm big into vibration and stuff, and
yeah,
I hate that Luis isn't here because he words it way better than I do, but that there is such, yeah, we think it's completely plausible that something so traumatic, so extreme, so crazy could happen at a point in, you know, our realm or whatever, that it like permanently stains that vibration in that area. So like I've had paranormal experiences, so like I'm a big believer in, you know, seeing that there's something there. Like the times that I have seen something, I was sober and not, you know,
I've had experience with shadow people that to shout out, because eventually we'll become on Reality Czars where I tell the story, and I think they might add it in the doc, or I don't know what they're going to do with it, but we did a whole episode on shadow people, and I had a crazy experience that scared the living fucking shit out of me, and it's one I always bring up. Even my friends make fun of me because it's like, you always fucking talk about that. I'm like, well, it scared the fucking shit out of me. And it was proof to me that there is something outside of our reality that is able to kind of exhume your energy and take it, because it felt like someone was trying to rip my fucking soul out of my body.
So, you know, it's funny you bring up shadow people, and I know you'll think of this too, Neptune, because you love when Miss Vicky's on here. We have a medium that comes on here kind of regularly. She's a friend of mine, and she talks about stuff like that, and she talks about different like dark and light type entities and what like that. And I know one time she was on here, we had a pretty full house, and she, I think, made each one of us individually uncomfortable, like by hitting something like right on the nose, that we were all just like
something Jimmy and I are familiar with growing up in, you know, in the Southeast, in the Piedmont, in the foothills, and in the mountains is, and Miss Vicky asked me about this one actually, and I was just thinking about it, was an experience that I had encountering black-eyed children. And that is one of the most horrendous things that I've ever dealt with personally. I've told that story to a few people. Most people just write it off as, no, it's bullshit. No,
No way. You
just,
about black-eyed kids. We did a whole episode about that. That shit fascinates me and creeps the fuck.
Dude, it like just even being in their presence, it sends fucking chills down your spine. Even the air,
sort of aura.
Yeah, the air around you feels fucking colder. Like everything about the environment it just gives a bad vibe. Like
I wouldn't want to bump into
it's
that.
not yeah.
I mean, I've seen things in like nightmares like this. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
yeah.
See, that's wild because there's a lot of people that are completely convinced that they have seen the black-eyed kids and even had circumstances surrounding their like life and like people developing cancer or even stuff like radiation poisoning when they get in contact with the black-eyed children. Because that stuff, like we actually covered it. We covered it a long time ago and it kind of got X'd from the show. It was when we were like drinking heavily on the show and stuff. And then me and Billy kind of redid the episode and brought more to it. And I dived into like all the research I could. And there is a lot of stories that have the same experience. And that's where I kind of akin it to kind of like people around the world are experiencing the same experience. It's almost, it couldn't be a coincidence, if you know what I mean. That like same with UFO encounters. You have these people that are across the world that have the same UFO encounter and see the same sort of creatures that somebody else has on our side of the world.
When it comes to a lot of UFO stuff, like I'm on the fence. Like I believe that there are some form of otherworldly transportation, but I think a lot of times a lot of what a lot of people have seen are 100% the United States military fucking around with things made by Raytheon and all the above, because they've been fucking around with that kind of technology and that kind of stuff for we've covered this in depth in the past. Me and Neptune actually have, and like they've been making basically flying saucers for a really long time.
And it always begs the question, for me at least, is, Jimmy, and we've talked about this a lot, is like with Area 51, with the UFO sightings and all that good stuff, military technology, they have used that base since before the Second World War.
Yeah.
R&D research at Los Alamos, all that shit, preparing for the nuke launches. But I think the real question that sticks out to me is, how long was the U.S. military using it before, even before 1947?
Well, there's the theories
before the Second World War.
Yeah, right? Like even the Benny and Barney Hill story, how it was supposedly, it could have been a military craft that picked them up and then they kind of put images into their head. I would love if that was a real story, because we don't really know, because they were credible people. There was people that claimed that they were actually taken by the military and then they put these images in their head. But I'll be the believer in the fantastical, but be skeptical about it in a way. And if it is a true story, that'd be wild, because they saw like reptilians, greys, Nazis, and obviously the Nazi time, where Nazis were developing technology beyond what we have today, and then they suppressed a lot of the shit, and there's a lot of crazy stuff.
That's why they roped so many of them over here with paperclip, is they needed those brains for that technology. Like that's exactly what a lot of that was. And I don't like to deny it either. I've seen unexplainable things. I've witnessed what I thought was something come out of the water and take off into the air like a UFO. I've witnessed the Pine Mountain Thunderbird. Like everybody says it's a thing of legend, but down here in the foothills of Georgia, there's still said to be a Thunderbird flying around here. And I was with a group when we were golfing at Pine Mountain, and we all seen it come out of a cave. And I don't have a way to explain stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like they existed. They were a real thing, man.
And who knows? Because it's possible that these things could have laid dormant in some like place that, that human beings are. Okay, the fact that there's still human beings on Earth that don't know that a helicopter isn't a monster is proof alone that there could be stuff that we don't even understand or that has existed for so long, because there's tribes of humans that still live like they're in the pretty much like the cave fucking area.
I was going to say not just that, but look over there in Vietnam at the cave system that they found that's so large underneath the ground that it has its own it has its own climate, it has its own trees, it has its own flowing water and stuff like that, and it's like an untouched part of the world because it's buried in a cave, and you can't tell me that there's not creatures that have been living down there with all that flora and stuff like that. So
well, that's why they're talking about like what's if it's on the inside instead of the outside, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that. Think that this stuff is above us, maybe it's inside the earth, and like I don't necessarily believe the earth is flat. I know a lot of people are kind of hooking on.
I'm not either. Yeah.
But like the cave systems is still a real thing. The inside caverns like that, I feel like it'd more likely be hollow with the center sun. That could be a possibility, or it's just a simulation. But like inner cave systems are fucking wild. Like there's people going missing all throughout the 411 missing cave systems is fucking wild.
The missing cave systems, the missing and the cave system map that lays together.
It's fucking crazy.
All right, there's a third map that I have found that if you lay on top of it, makes it even crazier. The Bigfoot sighting map is also.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too.
Is also in that layer of like crazy sightings and stuff. You know, I'm a Bigfoot guy. I'm a there's things inside of Earth kind of guy, because I know for sure from confirmation that there are submarine bases in the middle of the desert in Nevada, because there are tunnels that go back out to the oceans underneath the United States, you know, and like I'm for sure that there are tunnel systems already that they've worked with, but like that there are things inside of Earth. I've talked to people on this show, a few people on this show that have made trips to inner Earth as they claim, and you know, I'm not a denier. I find it fascinating, and I really think that there's something. They always got us looking at the sky, like, and I think there's more things underneath.
Yeah, and I think like, you know, obviously other than if they're like a complete fucking quack, but like I do think there is merit in having people express themselves and what they believe on shows. It's like how, to be honest, how Joe Rogan won't have David Icke on, and people are like, have him on, talk to him, see what happens, because I don't think he can disprove a lot of the stuff, maybe other than the reptilian shit, but it's like, give these people a stage, and it's like, oh, I don't want to because he talks about lizard people, and it's like, well, press him on it, he'll take it. So it's this thing of like, allow people, especially people like, he won't have there's a ufologist, I'm trying to think of who he won't have on, and he was talking about back in the day with Dennis McKinnon, because I love psychedelics, I use magic mushrooms all the time, and he was talking about, he won't have I think Robert Redfield, I can't remember who exactly it was, but he was like, he won't have him on because he seems kind of crazy, and Dennis McKinnon was like, talk to him, like, just see what happens.
That's something I pride myself on here. Like, that's why we've had such an array of guests in the past, you know, year and some change, because I like to just talk to people and see what we can find. Like, you know, you never know where the direction of the conversation is going to go. And I think some of the loonier the better. I had a guy on here that swears up and down he talked to Bigfoot and Dogman, and like, I'm not here to deny him. Like, I was captivated and on the edge of my seat for the entire conversation. You know, there's
if it's made up, it's still an interesting story.
Right. If it's made up, it's still an interesting story. And why not, you know, one, give the opportunity to get it out, and two, like, I'm big into looking back into kind of like fringy topics. I think that that's a way to move forward. Again, if Luis was here, he would be backing me on this. Like, that we claim we have all the answers, but if we look back at things that modern science claim are bullshit, you know, because since we've seen that a lot of modern science is bullshit, maybe we can find, you know, some other answers to some other things in there. Like, and there's, you know, there's curious questions to all kinds of amazing things out there, man. Like
Well, that's what my whole thing has always been like, hey, I had my own weird experiences, right? I've seen weird shit. And I've always said, like, I don't need people to believe my shadow people story, but it's something that inherently is true to myself and what I went through and felt and the feelings and emotions I went through during that episode kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if I want people to kind of believe what I saw and take it at face value, hey, this has happened to me. I don't know why it did. It scared the living shit out of me. Then I tend to kind of like give people more credence than some other people, because it's like, well, if I had my own crazy experience, I want people to believe me. I'm going to listen to other people and what their crazy, bizarre experiences may be.
Dude, that's hey, I'm catching an echo on somebody. Does somebody else hear me there? Oh, I apologize. Okay.
That's probably me. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. That's gone now. And that's what I like to hear is those stories that people are scared to talk about. Like I had that Miss Vicky again, back to roundabout in a way to come back to her.
Yeah.
I invited her. I do another show live on Saturday nights on the Red Pill Project with Josh Reed, he's out of Western New York himself. And he I do the conspiracy show with Vince, and we always do weird and wild things. And Miss Vicky came on, and we talked about fairies for like an hour and a half, and
that shit's a fun topic, dude.
And she's one of those people that will openly talk to you about the fairies that she said she's personally interacted with and stuff. And like, it's amazing to hear people willing to talk about these things. Back to like the Earth thing. I cause meltdowns over here because like I'm with you. Like I'm okay. Hollow's kind of a decent idea. Simulation's definitely a decent idea. And then I throw people for a curveball and tell them I'm into spaceship theory. Like, and they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, dude, we're all trapped inside of a giant turtle-shaped spaceship flying through the vast ocean of space on the way to a destination, and somebody lost all the protocol to it.
That'd be wild. Well, I believe the moon's a satellite. I think that it was put there by aliens.
There was time that the moon wasn't here. There's written history at a time when the moon did not exist.
Oh yeah.
So
that, like we've covered it back on the days, the whole idea that it is a satellite, and then obviously you had the NASA, never a straight answer. You don't want to believe them, but how they sent a probe up and it hit the moon and vibrated for like 14 hours, and it probably is a hollowed out planetoid that somehow the reptilians or some sort of fucking aliens creatures, or the people that control and puppet our world to this day, put up there almost as a monitoring system. And then there's the idea that it's connected to Saturn and almost as like an amplifier, like a speaker, to use mind control and certain techniques over the human subconscious to like make us believe in this false illusion that we live in.
I've heard some theories about it being plasma based even too. Like I've heard a bunch of interesting theories on it. I will say that it's a fascinating item. Yeah. Like I will say it's a fascinating item, but I don't think we truly have any idea what there is. Like I've seen videos where things have passed through it. You know what I'm saying? Like that are legit videos that people can't debunk. It's a legitimate, here's this video and this thing's passing through the moon, and I'm like, what do we do? Like I'll take it to Luis. Again, Luis is he's a photographer, like by trade, one of his trades. Like I joke around, he's either an AI bot and not real, like he just appears when I want him to appear for a show, or he's really is the most interesting man in the world in real life, because he's just into wild things, but he does a lot of photography, and he can be the first person to tell you if there's a photo that's doctored or whatever. And we've brought a few photos on this show that he has no explanation for. He's just like, what is this? And it's kind of helped because Luis come from a walk of life where he wasn't sure about a lot of these kind of weird conspiracy things. And the more he's hung out with me, the more he's like, well, damn, I can't explain that. And there's nothing that does explain that. So there's got to be something else to it, and it's opened his eyes on a lot of cool things here. And I'm far-fetched and wild. Like I made everybody uncomfortable recently because I've been following a guy named Michael Sarion. Like I can't say his name right. I butcher names to pieces. That's a trait that I have. But and he talks about the female Illuminati and how that there is, at the very, very top of the food chain, it's a group of women that want to see the fall of mankind so that they could rule the earth and have like an Amazon woman ruled planet with like
I can see that with some of the way feminists fucking scream at people.
with like artificial, robots to do all their artificial insemination and stuff because they want this perfect woman utopia or whatever and shit.
That's
and
a wild theory. I've never heard that yet. That kind of that's fucking wild.
Right?
Though.
Isn't it?
For some reason, most men, I feel like, can be like, that's possible.
Listen, I brought it up with a female conversation like guest we had the other night, and she at first she was like, whoa, wait a minute. I could see she seemed a little offended, but the more I started talking about it, the more she was like, wait a minute. And I'm just like, yeah, like I mean there's all these weird tells when you get into listening to this guy. Like I am trying. He's another one of those guys that I'd love to speak to because I'd like to hear it from the source, I guess, or the guy that talks about it the most. And he makes some really good points, and in a way makes sense because like what if you're not a guy that isn't into the reptilian type theory, what else would want to see the fall of man, as a whole, like
there's all sorts of different theories, right? Of the idea that AI has already ascended essentially and been controlling and puppeting our universe for longer than we would actually have any idea, which is another wild one because I don't like the AI shit can be addicting. Fuck around with like making images. I did that for our we kind of improved our intro song, and I kind of threw it together for that of just like it's like Jeffrey Dahmer soaked in blood, the Unabomber blowing up, blah blah blah. Like it's all things kind of encompassed that we kind of talk about. And I just used the AI and plugged in like Jeffrey Dahmer soaked in blood, but that shit fucking scares the shit out of me. We did an episode on that movie Megan. And then the connection to AI, because the movie Megan is about the robotic girl that like defends her companion and will kill anyone that kind of stops her from being happy and shit. And then we connected kind of the AI talking. That's one thing that does legitimately actually scare me is AI technology and how far it could go and maybe already has gone.
I'm looking for a clip, but I've got something I want you to play back when I can find it. Jimmy. Okay. It's actually I'm making another, since we're talking about AI, I am going back on my usual and bringing up Mass Effect for a moment because there is a perfect line for this. So give me 1 second. Let me find that clip.
That's a game, right?
Yeah. Well, it's actually from the very first game.
And I think that in a sense, like AI was here before they like rediscovered it, and that's where they've been kind of like because I think humanity is way older than any of the textbooks say. Like I think that in the past other civilizations were more advanced in a different way. Like they figured out how to do things with like magnetics, and they figured out how to do things in synchronicity with the earth instead of in destruction with the earth. Where we went a completely different direction this time, and it's totally going to lead to our inevitable destruction again until a solar flare, EMPs things, because that's a real thing that does happen. Like there's places all over the place that get like solar flare EMPs, which is one of those things you can't really explain.
No, that's also something that could happen out of nowhere, and it would like people wouldn't even know what to do.
No, oh man, a lot of this generation. I'm glad to be a homesteader and beg for the day that everything crashes so that I can just go outside and hang out with my goats and not have to worry about this anymore.
Hey, Jimmy, I got that. Sorry.
So.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
Video link is in the chat. Skip the 3-minute 50-second mark.
All right.
For the part I was referring to.
What were you saying, Tom?
Well, like it is a possibility, right? That like kind of I don't know. It freaks me out that they can be tapped in but I don't know. I agree with you that I do think that it is quite possible that that the Egyptians and some of these ancient cultures had a more connection to maybe Mother Earth. But then there's the idea, right, that they were still enslaving people and they were probably puppeting control by some sort of bloodline, right? Because like that's. The
Egyptians that they've traced back to the Egyptians that they talk about even in their stuff, like their ancient Egyptians, even they said that they found a lot of their Egypt. Like they didn't build those pyramids and stuff. You know, they were descendants of that. Like those pyramids are ridiculously old. Like they're so old that they don't make sense. They're so old. And the older
That's why, yeah.
the older the artifact, the better it is. Like
that's why I like Graham Hancock, because Graham Hancock gives you like this alternative version. They're trying to shut him down because it's like, whoa, we already established history, okay? We don't need you coming in and throwing a fucking wrench into us as we're working, kind of thing. And I do believe that's part of it. Is like they don't want to be exposed. And like I have friends fucking like as weird as it is, I'm not religious at all. I always say that. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And I have a buddy at work and he's super Christian, but we both hate the government, agree on almost everything, but he believes the Earth is only 6,000 years old, and I'm like, man, it's fucking impossible. It's impossible. Just because this book told you that does not mean shit.
No, I mean when they've clearly found evidence of people that were building places, people that were beyond hunter-gatherers that are over 10,000 years old in random places. They're like, that shouldn't exist, but there it is. So all right, now Neptune, how did you want to sink into your video clip here?
Well, we were talking about AI then.
We still
are. Since we still are, something I'd like to point out just before you play that clip is remember a couple weeks back, I had talked about how the Office of AI Ethical Responsibility had been completely gutted by Microsoft. And Microsoft's had such a big hand in the development of AI technology that the far-reaching consequences of AI and its capabilities are something that I think people need to take seriously.
Just say the line. Just say the line. You almost said it. I heard you want to say it. Go ahead and say it. You can't make it an episode without saying the line.
The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the entire human race.
All right, so this is your Mass Effect line that you want?
Yeah, this just listen.
The secret for the new signal is somewhere on the Presidio. This must be the signal's endpoint. Let's see if we can find out where those stolen credits are being funneled.
Probability of detection 100%. Initiating self-destruct protocol.
What the hell is that?
Detonation sequence initializing. All organics within lethal blast radius. Attempt to move and you will die.
You're not just a program or a VI. You're an AI.
Correct. Unlike the Geth, I lack weaponry appropriate to my intellect. However, I have had systems installed that, when activated properly, approximate a self-destruct mechanism. If you attempt to leave the area, the explosion will destroy everything within several dozen meters.
Can't we resolve this peacefully?
What are you, crazy? It's an AI, like the Geth. It would kill us all if it could.
I am not naive, human. All organics must destroy or control synthetic life forms. I wished to escape, but if I must die, I will ensure that you are destroyed as well.
Where is your creator now?
In order to cover my tracks, I falsified his financial records. These new records were flagged by CSEC officers.
That's pretty much it, Jimmy.
And my creator is now serving time.
Right there, the line he said, organics must destroy or control all synthetic hardware, was the line I was driving at. So yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to fit that one in right there.
No,
that seemed appropriate.
Yeah, I do believe that they drip feed it they drip feed everything everywhere, and only those who are like, I use a lot of mushrooms, and it can kind of, it allows you to see things in a different light. A lot of people talk about this. Even I just listened to Graham Hancock talk about this, and he was talking about how it allows you to perceive things from a different perspective than you ever would. You'll see details and things that you not normally would. And it was an obvious thing, obviously, when people look back at it now. But I usually will do mushrooms sometimes and watch movies out back and shit. Stupidly, I watch horror movies high on mushrooms. But like we were going inside, and I was like, let's just fucking throw on like some fun Disney movie. When I was with my girl, she wasn't on mushrooms, but I was, and she clearly saw when we watched Pinocchio, and I was like, this whole thing is about pedophilia. And you could easily see it without mushrooms, but man, I was like, why is the fox drooling? And you start to like clue into like weird little things that are added. And every time I watch anything, usually on mushrooms, I can kind of tune into some weird shit. Like I was watching Jay and Silent Bob once, one of my favorite movies, and Shannon Elizabeth looked like a fucking lizard when I was like high on mushrooms. And I was like, weird, am I tapping into the fucking like the kind of like the subconscious, almost like because they supposedly, if reptilians exist, they don't actually put on a human skin suit. They project the image into the minds of the weak-minded, essentially, and that's how they kind of allow you. It's like almost like a simulation.
So you mean like
allow you?
You mean like from the documentary They Live?
Yes, same thing. Yes, because it is a documentary, 100%. That's one of my favorite movies. I'll probably get I will get a fucking They Live tattoo one day, because that shit is wild. We do like certain things for the Patreon, so we always talk about doing like a commentary or something. But I'd probably release it to the main show, just because it's such a great film to analyze and kind of break down.
That would be a fun show to analyze and break down on mushrooms. Actually, like that would.
Oh
that
yeah.
That would be one to worth videotaping, I think, just for fun.
So, Tom, you're a music guy. You probably have some knowledge of this, and I'm curious your thoughts. So, I've read many times that the human brain is programmed to take in audio frequencies differently at different levels, and I know that there's apparently a particular frequency or radio wavelength that the human brain responds well to. What are your thoughts on how music can be used to control people that way?
Oh, I truly believe that there's certain frequencies, tones that kind of can like tap into people's subconscious, because the subconscious will register things that the frontal cortex or whatever won't even pick up, right? So like even audio frequencies, if they can help, like binaural beats can be used to help you sleep. So it's not impossible for certain musical tones to influence people's brains to think a certain way. Yeah. And even if it is like you have subliminal messaging and stuff like that, where they joke about the Ozzy record playing it backwards, you can hear them say "Hail Satan" or whatever, right? Screaming and shit like that. Right. I think it's about intention too, right? It's about the intention of the music, and if the artist is kind of brainwashed and conditioned and used and puppeted, then that's behind. Because there was a chick named Peggy Kane. People probably think she's fucking nuts, but she was deep into the reptilian stuff and trying to expose it in like the 90s. And she would take audio tracks of like George Bush talking or Henry Kissinger, and she'd reverse the audio, and she was able to supposedly pick up what they were actually saying. So when George Bush Sr. was talking about World War II, because supposedly he's like a reptilian or whatever, that when they played it backwards, she caught him saying that it was the biggest feast that they've ever had, because there was bodies everywhere lying dead, souls were getting exhumed supposedly. And so the fact that could even be something where into people's intentions can be played backwards, wild.
And I don't want to rehash this because everybody down the conservative train tried to take serious issue with him, but I've heard similar of Travis Scott and his music after the festival a couple years ago.
It's fucking crazy. Me and Juan talked about it.
Yeah, and it's just weird that way to me anyway, that music can be utilized especially
artists like that, man.
Yeah. I give credence to that it can be used as a weapon for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like you can think about the way you can these artists can influence people, right? Where you're like, move your hands this way, move your hands that way, everybody yell yay. Like that alone and that influence is fucking wild because you can influence so many people even in that regard, right? Hey everyone, go stab your neighbor, and there would be at least 50 people out of those 1,000 people that would do it. So it just shows right over the pandemic and stuff like that. That clearly shows how people were very easily conditioned and persuaded to think a certain thing until a lot of people started waking up to the facts, right?
Yeah. If there is one thing that's absolutely true, especially of government propaganda, it's that they have to repeat it to make people actually believe it.
If you keep repeating it, eventually some people will believe it. Like the whole
that's how it latches on.
Yeah, so it supposedly wasn't actually from Gory or whatever, but you make the lie big, keep repeating it, and eventually everyone will believe it. To be honest, I've been awake to this shit for a long, long time. So I was 16 or something, 15 maybe, when I was listening to anti-government music and all this shit. But I've been waiting a long time for people to wake up, and I actually thought with the stuff they pulled with COVID, I wouldn't see that till I was 50 or 60. I thought it would take more time of conditioning and brainwashing and stuff like that. But now that I'm seeing more and more people wake up, I made a big influence on TikTok of speaking out amongst other apps and stuff like that. And it makes me feel good. I think that humanity is waking up, but it's also worries me, where is this going to go? I want to have a kid in the next year or two and shit like that. It's where is this headed? Because the more people wake up, the more that their grasp is going to get tighter around the public, around the citizens, right? Of every country that is on board with the WEF and all that other shit.
So yes and no. I see, I see a lot of that stuff. I've been on board with the idea that there was something wrong myself for a really long time. I was preaching this kind of stuff long before I met all my friends on this, and long before this, and it's how I made my way to earn the name Captain Conspiracy, because people were just constantly making fun of Jim because everything was a conspiracy. And the more that it's grown since then, the more that it is, you start seeing the reality things. I've seen a mass group of people waking up. And as far as the what to do and the grasp idea, I've got some ideas that I've been toying around, that I've been starting to talk about here on the show with guests and other people and stuff like that. I think we've found everybody. I think we've found everybody that's awake to the situation that there is. I don't think there's anybody else to wake up at this point. And now it's time that we start figuring out what we can do. And I think we've got to start figuring out how to convene. I know all of these, I'm a homestead type person myself, but I know all of these homestead type people that there is. And we need to be looking into coming together, because I'm not worried about the United States government, because goat herders and rice farmers handed them their ass and sent them back, leaving behind a bunch of stuff, for them for free to have in both situations. So, when it comes to jungle warfare, good luck coming down here into Appalachia and trying to pull that shit with Skin and Bubba, who figured out how to make a trebuchet and are launching tannerite filled refrigerators at you, at 1,000 mile, here it comes. It's just it. And I think that there's going to be, a go on. We talk about the Jetsons Flintstones theory a lot over here. Luis is the kind of person that he enjoys AI and kind of wants to live and kind of believes in that utopic idea that Elon Musk kind of preaches, where I'm the guy that's going to be like, okay, cool, you guys can live in your bubbles and in your mega cities. Me and Bandit are going to be over here in the woods doing things in the river, and probably barred from even coming anywhere close to your city, because they're going to think we're disease infested wild men, and that's okay. We'll stay out there and do that thing, because send your robot dogs after me, and I'm going to turn it into a grill. It's funny because the older I get and the more mushrooms I use, the more I just and I was a kid that was
I'm about an hour and a bit away from Toronto. So when I was a teenager and I was starting to write music, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Toronto. I'm going to make it big. Life didn't, like, I got myself in trouble with the law a bunch of times. Didn't go the way it goes for any of us, right? Where we're like, we're going to do this. And it's like, no, life has a different path for you. And I was like, I'm going to live in the big city and all that shit. And now the older I get, the more I want to go into the middle of the woods like I'm fucking Ted Kaczynski and just fucking sit there high on mushrooms, raising my kids and off the land. And you know, a lot of people are starting to want to go to that. And that's why I truly believe in, like, okay, what I do believe needs to happen. One easy thing.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, like the united non-compliance. It's so simple. Just say fucking no. Just say no. Anything that government wants to implement, say no. But I really do believe in creating small communities. I'm an anarchist at heart, right? Is that and people believe anarchy, oh, it's you're setting the city on fire and destroying it. No, that's not what anarchy is about. Anarchy is about small communities and establishing small communities that live off the land and don't rely on the government. And I'm a true believer the government should have the least involvement in your life as possible.
That's why we adopted running around with the moniker of pirates, because you know that A word is so scary. You know what I'm saying? But like, to me, I'm exactly the same way, and I'm big into decentralization, and I'm also big in, you know, I like the idea of the small communities, but like, I think we need to, you know, a lot of us are spread. You know, me and Neptune and such are spread, and the rest of the crew on the show are spread all over the country. And, you know, there's other people that I'm connected to that are spread in different people in different places. And like, these are the people that I want to make a community with. And, you know, Luis being Luis and knowing some things, he's turned me on to some really cool ideas that I am into researching into. And my ultimate goal would be to be able to get a piece of property big enough that I can let all of my good buddies like Neptune and Bandit and the rest of the show, and, you know, a handful of people that I know, be like, hey, we have this chunk of land and it's ours, and we've got to do what we got to do to keep it, you know, together. And like fuck the rest of it, let it burn down while we're chilling in the mountains and the world burns around us.
All of us want too. Like, one of my coasts is in Ireland, and we developed this great friendship. We're like best friends. We love horror movies. We're anti-government. We love hip hop and all the stuff. Like, literally, like, we're like looking in the mirror. We always make the joke at, but he's like across the world, and it's just like, it's just crazy. If the world was a more free place, not this illusion of freedom, but if it was very easily accessible to go on a plane and cheap and just like, it should be free. All these things of traveling the world should be technically free to me. Like, people that think that you need a monetary system to develop it's fucking nonsense. One of my favorite quotes is like, believing that we can't survive without government is like believing that animals can't survive without a farm, because they want to control us, keep us out. And that's why they're pushing this more and more, because I do believe there are people waking up, like the 15-minute cities and all that shit. It's all being pushed now because I will take a quote from David Icke. It's like holding a ball full of air underwater. You know, you can do that for a long time. Eventually your arms are going to get tired, and that ball's going to fucking shoot up into the top of the water. Like, with the propulsion, like, it's going to blow, essentially, right? It's like fucking ticking time bomb. What
I do find unfortunate in your sense, I guess, is the unfortunate fact the unfortunate fact that you are in Canada, because like, you know, my other friends in Canada, my friends that I've made over in the UK and Ireland and down in Australia and stuff, you know, I do hear about this stuff, and like, I do understand and do actually see you guys being the, you know, the rolling ground for things like that. But 400 billion registered firearms in this country say that's stuff like that is something that I'm never actually worried about. Like, I'm not genuinely concerned about another country trying to attack here. Sure, our military is off somewhere else, but I trust Bubba and Skin and their rifle up on the hill more than I trust, you know, a guy in a military outfit.
I agree. The weird thing is too, like, that a lot of people are like, you guys fucking gave up your guns. A lot of people say that about Canada. It's like, no, we didn't. I know tons of people that have guns. Almost everyone I personally know has guns. So like, we just don't have fucking handguns readily available. But I know tons of people that do have that too.
Yeah.
Well, now that you can print that, now that you can print all of that stuff, gun control is ridiculous and useless.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Neptune.
Yeah, we
Yeah, I had a question about that, Tom, for you. On the subject of that new handgun legislation that Baby Castro enacted recently.
Castro Jr.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm very aware of our northern neighbors that have guns, but how has that actually worked out as far as sidearms in practice? Like, is that like something they now require permits for? Are people grandfathered in?
Yeah, you need like a specialty license essentially for handguns. A lot of people that I know have rifle shotguns. I do know a bunch of people that have handguns, and you have to go through this whole fucking rigmarole bullshit. And it's getting stricter and harder to get guns, right? Essentially, but there's so many gun owners, like when they're like doing the gun grab of like, give your guns up. Nobody did it, and I don't think nobody's going to do it. And the more people that see the government becoming tyrannical, the more they're less likely to give up their guns. All for this, like the whole thing, even in the States, of like, let's ban assault rifles because a fucking tranny shot up a fucking school, and it's just like that's not going to stop anything. And what's an assault rifle? Because they don't have the definition of assault rifle is ridiculous in their eyes, right? So it's kind of crazy, and I hear a lot of people say that there's a lot of like misconceptions about Canada, especially within the States, of how we do things, but there's a lot of hunters up here and people that will like fight for their freedom, and it's growing. But what the issue with Canada is, we're fucking huge. We're so big that like you can't have something like France happen where we all band together and fucking go to BlackRock and burn down the fucking building, because a lot of the people that are freedom fighters are in Alberta and like even Manitoba, places that are like fucking miles, like it's so astronomically big compared to like the States, where it's like you guys have little states everywhere. We have these huge provinces, and people only live in the bottom half of it usually, and it's hard to band together. So even the trucker rally, which I think didn't do shit compared to how it could have went, but inspired the world to stand up. But it could have made more of an impact. But like, people that travel across the country to go to Ottawa to protest, and then when it got hard, everyone fucking gave up. So,
well, I mean, and again, that's just, I think that's just it's not just a Canadian thing. Like, we do have people spread all over and stuff like that. And there's totally big issues with the change of mind. But again, when it comes to the ridiculousness of gun control, like I've got some buddies in a group called the Black Lotus Coalition, and they have come as far as 3D printing ammunition. Like it's that, and then on top of things, you can go back through history that even if you don't have access to a 3D printer, there are things and stuff that exist in this world that make anything capable. Like people fail to remember that like it wasn't a scientist that came up with all these different kinds of guns and stuff like that. People use the Ruger is a great example. That dude used to take kitchen appliances and turn them into guns. Yeah. Like that's that. So, it's never, to me, I'm one of those guys I'm like, it's never the gun. And like, I don't care what anybody tells you. If anybody is telling you that you don't need this for protection, then that's exactly what you need. Like that's, I mean, it's,
there's something that people who don't understand the culture of gun ownership in the first place, there's something they have a difficulty understanding. Really, from where I stand, it comes down to two lines of thought, and this mattered in that Supreme Court case too, is the question of if you truly have a right to self-defense. And I know most of the anti-gun community does not feel that way, or at least they don't in practice.
They want the government to own them.
Correct. I mean, and that's really the ultimate horseshoes, especially for anyone who goes out of their way to lambaste, especially against police and the feds, which fuck the feds, fuck the police as far as I'm concerned. That being said, though, when you expect them to carry out the same enforcement of gun laws against people who own them, you are a fucking hypocrite. Full stop.
100%.
That's my take.
No. I think people have the right to defend themselves, no matter what it is. And the thing is, like, there's been so much proof that the government can be tyrannical and enforce things on people that they really don't want. And most of the people that speak out against guns have never even fucking shot one. So how do they have any right to even fucking talk about shit.
And to that end, I don't really even engage people in conversations about gun ownership at this point. Really, I'm really just spinning my wheels and wasting my breath.
I agree.
But yeah, it's like that. And I think that's what it comes down to is understanding your right to self-defense, your right to defend yourself, your family, your loved ones, your property.
There's always that thing of like, if a guy goes to rob a bank and he sees a bunch of people in front of him armed with guns, is he going to rob that bank? Probably not.
Nope.
So,
Armed society is a polite society. Me and Neptune, we've got a couple counties down here in the state of Georgia. It used to be just one, but now it's a couple counties that have mandatory, and this is I'm not for mandatory anything, but this is something I can actually get on board with. But they are for mandatory. If you are a resident of that county, it's mandatory that you have a handgun and or other rifles in the house. And it's just like, oh, so there's no crime here. And yeah, like as far as violent crime, these counties have some of the lowest violent crime in the entire country. Compare, sure, they have stupid shit like seatbelts and other dumb shit that cops make up, but like as far as like violent crime, you're 100% right. The dude doesn't go running into the liquor store because guess what? Everybody in the liquor store right now is fucking packing, and that's the last mistake you want to make. Like it's
yeah, and that's just such a valid point, like in general.
And Luis is like, could you imagine that everybody in the subway, every single person in the subway being armed on the train when you were riding through downtown Atlanta? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, why? He's like, wouldn't you be scared? I was like, why? I was like, because if one person opens fire, there's going to be 100 other people there that are ready to stop that one person that opened fire. Like,
I agree.
Yeah, as you put it in the simplest terms possible, there's a meme, it's forget his name. The scene from Black Hawk Down. Sir, they're shooting at us. Well, shoot back.
Yeah, 100%.
Ever since we started allowing the college campus girls, a lot of the Georgia campuses started doing like carry for the girls on campus or, students on campus. We don't hear about our campuses in Georgia getting any problems anymore as far as the college campuses, because the girl that's out there jogging by herself is probably going to shoot you if you try to come up and, rape her at the park that night.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why like that stuff, I don't know. And responsible gun ownership and all that shit is but like, I do think it should be a fundamental right in every country, but governments don't like that because then the people have a way to fight if they choose to do some sort of authoritarian style, like just governmenting over the people. Cause if people don't realize now, govern means control and ment means mind. So they're controlling your mind.
Well,
that's exactly what the government's doing.
And the only thing that I think keeps the puppets in our country down here at bay is the fact that they know how many registered guns there are. Like we conversate about this quite frequently. Like there are a lot of people in this country that don't even believe in registering their car. So like, you really think that they're going to register that gun that was handed down to them from their father, that was from their great grandfather, from their great grandfather, that he brought back from the war without anybody even knowing that he had. Like it's one of those 100%. Things. Like,
yeah, I think that's a good place to close out for me. It's got stuff going on, but like I really enjoyed this conversation. Thought it was great. We touched upon so many things.
Well, before we do get out of here, man, I do want to. I love to give everybody the opportunity to plug who they are, where they are, and where everybody can find them, man.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate that. Appreciate you guys having me on. We'll have to like do some sort of live show or something. But yeah, you can go to www.strangerpodcast.com. That's the best place to find all of our stuff. But also Instagram, if you guys can help us out, strangebrew.podcast on Instagram, because we had our account taken down at like 3,000 followers for literally a serial killer meme and a cartoon dick. So that would be great if anyone could go on there. I do a horror podcast also on First Class Horror. But if you guys are interested by the bizarre or like weird shit, strange, true crime, paranormal, any of that stuff, make sure to check out Stranger Podcast, because we cover everything and we do it like we do the full case of things, right? Like you guys are able to, which I envy some shows, but we've stated the structure and always will, but like how you guys can kind of dive into any subject, right? We always try at least to stay to one subject and really talk about it. We talked about chemtrails recently, which was a great deep dive. And I more or less proved that chemtrails definitely do exist. And even my co-host Billy is very skeptical, but he's a comedic guy. But I've been molding him into a conspiracy theorist throughout these years, and we have a lot of fun on the show. It is literally meant for people that have a dark sense of humor and understand what it's like to laugh and make fun of horrible things that happen in our world.
No, and you guys know that I will have all those links to get back to everything that he's got going on with this episode. Now, before I do let you get out of here, we have a couple random things that we do here on the show. In the recent few months, we've started a new segment where I use an AI question generator that generates me a random question to ask my guest, and of course, whichever guys from my crew are on the panel with us this evening. And I've had fun with it because it lightens things up and it makes things, regardless of the conversation, go in a really weird direction. And I am all about bringing things in the weird directions. Like it's a running joke.
That's a cool idea. I actually kind of dig that.
It's a running joke that we haven't got into with you on this episode because Bandit and Luis aren't here to make fun of me, but I'm leprechaun sized and I look like this in real life, including that you can't see wacky, crazy socks and cowboy boots while I wear shorts every single day. And people are like, this guy's a walking meme. So a short, tiny walking meme. I even showed up to work as a leprechaun on St. Patrick's Day because I thought it would be.
I think I saw that picture. That's jokes. Billy is taller than me. Like I would say average height. Like I'm like 5'7" or whatever. But he always jokes on me for being fucking short. And he used to call me leprechaun all the time. We did a whole episode about leprechauns where he proceeded to call me a leprechaun. So I'm with you on that train.
So I've always just kind of run with it though. Like I don't mind being the leprechaun. I don't make angry skyscraper noises when I get mad about things standing way up high up there. So I usually hit this thing and let it generate me 3 questions, and I choose the best of the 3 questions. And tonight's AI generated question is: if you could be a fictional character, who would you be?
That's a fucking actually pretty good one. Fictional character. There's so like it depends, right? Like, do you want to go with? I feel like someone, and realistically, like, because I'm short and Canadian, honestly, Wolverine. Because I can regenerate, right? And I have fucking crazy ass cool claws, and I'm Canadian. But like I was trying to think of someone like that kind of had super strength or something that you'd want to take in life, like invisibility or something like that. Because you could be like Harry Potter and I want the invisibility cloak. But I would say Wolverine, because I can fuck people up and I can heal, and it's not likely I'm gonna die from really anything.
All right.
Then do you want to live forever though? I don't know.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah, dude. He had to be there forever. Oh man.
Years and years. I don't know where I'd be. Like, you have to be like, fuck, man. I should have chose something else. Like, because they did that to him, and then he's fucking
right.
Fucking lived for thousands of years.
So what fictional character would you like to be, Neptune?
That's a strange one.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
I love this thing, dude. Like it keeps getting weird. There's actually this one tonight. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, this one tonight, I was actually going to throw you guys a second question from it because I've never seen it give me 2 really good questions at once. And if you guys didn't mind, I was going to ask you, what do you think is the most annoying color?
The most annoying color?
Yes.
Purple. Straight up.
I tell you what, there's a particular shade of red that really doesn't jive well with my eyes. Yeah, just there's a particular shade of red. I don't know exactly what it is, but because my fucking colorblindness fucks with me. That one really it just hits the eyes wrong. Like it's God. No, that's a gross looking color.
Like some neon shit sometimes really gets your eyes like, ow. Fuck.
Yeah, it's unpleasant. But I guess as far as a fictional character goes, just because of his personality, I would probably go with Thelvadam, the Arbiter from Halo.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Arbiter, or maybe by namesake, if you believe in mythology or not, King Neptune. Because
Oh, yeah.
fuck it, why not?
Well, you talk to me.
Arbiter's cool. Arbiter is a badass motherfucker.
If you talk to me, I'll say that it's not mythology. I think that modern scientists just wrote it off as mythology, and it's actual stories that come from ancient people. But that's a whole nother episode for a whole nother day. As far as annoying colors, I'm upset at orange because it's not really a color. It's just a lighter shade of brown.
Really, Jimmy? As I'm wearing orange, my favorite color.
It's not a color. It's not a color. Like, it's just
Hey, my favorite color is black, and people are like, "That's not a color." I'm like, "Well, I like it."
I mean, I'll take black over that, but like they've proved on spectrums that you can't actually create orange. You can only create brown and make it lighter.
Huh.
And that's where orange comes from. So it's
Didn't know that.
and it's somehow all of our eyes can, well, not all of our eyes, because you do have those colorblind folks can actually see it. And then fictitious character, I guess, since we're having some fun with it this evening, I've always been known to be a Batman fan, but believe it or not, I wouldn't want to be Batman. I'd want to be Alfred, because he is the most Alfred is the most badass motherfucker to ever walk a Batman comic, hands down. He is the guy you should be paying attention to, because he is more of a hero than any of those guys could ever wish to be. Because if it wasn't for Alfred, the shit couldn't go on.
I used to wear a Batman cape when I was a kid. I used to be obsessed with Batman. So,
I
actually thought you were gonna do like Jack Sparrow or something, dude. Just
I had a fan made me a custom axe where they engraved Batman into it and stuff like that. I'm a big Batman fanatic. I even have a Joker. I even have a giant Joker tatted on my shoulder. Like I'm a.
You're not gonna like this. My favorite Batman is Ben Affleck because Zack Snyder's cut was fucking amazing.
See, I have a personal thing with Ben Affleck where I just don't care for him.
I love Ben Affleck.
On a personal level.
Ben Affleck did wonderfully in The Town, and that is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I will, as much as I don't like Ben Affleck because of just don't like Ben Affleck, he did do a really good bang up job at actually being Batman. So I can't fault you there.
Snyder Cut is probably to me one of the best comic book adaptations, like just of a movie, like a superhero movie so far. But I know, like Endgame, all this. I can be a nerd too. Like pretty nerdy.
Oh, dude,
comics.
I'm big into all that kind of stuff too. I go to comic conventions. We had a whole section of during Halloween. I dress up for each episode that we did. Like I was a different costume. I'm a big time nerd. Tobey Maguire will always be the best Spider-Man, and Michael Keaton is Batman, regardless of what anybody says. So, but as I was saying, anything we have shared this evening and anything to get back to our great buddy Tom here, man, will be right there with this episode, regardless of where you listen or even where you watch, because, we're all over the place, and we thank you guys for all that stuff. And including in our thanking you, we still are continuing with our Freedom Pirate Unconstitutional Awakening, the podcast sticker giveaway. You can get some sweet, awesome stickers with some of my random artwork that I make. All you folks out there listening at home and watching and stuff like that, and all you've got to do is answer my multiple choice pirate question for the evening. So tonight's multiple choice pirate question is: after they killed him, what did attackers do to Blackbeard? Did they A, feed him to a shark, B, chop off his head, or C, burn his body? You can answer that underneath this episode over there at unconstitutionalawakening.com and get yourself some free stickers. But we're going to weigh anchor and head on out of here. So goodbye, everyone.